Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, here to continue our journey with Caesar. I just finished a win against Pompey. The last episode, they had a lot of back and forth. Uh, Pompey kind of got a little bit of the best of them, but there was no like huge loss, and I don't think it was like a huge victory. I mean, Pompey they did. Pompey definitely needed the victory. I mean, I guess each of them kind of really needed a victory, but there was no like huge losses when it came to men. Uh, and yeah, so we're continuing now on the Battle of, is it Pharsalus? How you pronounce it? 48 BC. So yeah. Oh, I just want to say. I want to say there might not be any videos tomorrow. Probably not. So I'm gonna be kind of busy. So just a heads up. And yeah, it has some comments asking what I was doing next or something. Well, I'm going to continue this series just on Kings and Generals until it ends. So and after that, I'm gonna. I was also told by you guys that the new Marshals video it was just released for the Napoleon series. So after I finish this, I'm gonna do. I think it's number 6. Do you think you guys told me? So after I finish this series, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna do probably gonna do the winner of whatever series wins the poll. It's actually pretty close. So we'll see what happens there. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. It's kind of cool when everything's close. And so yeah, that's kind of like what I'm thinking right now. Just to kind of give you guys a heads up of what I'm thinking and probably what's going to kind of happen next. Um, I'd love to do like the Punic Wars, sometime eventually. Uh, I think there's more. There's like the first Punic War, the second, and third. Is there like 3 of them? I don't. I'm not sure what the difference is in all of them, but I'd like to. Whenever I do get to that point, I'm sure I'd like to just start with the first one and do the second and the third. Do them in order. Whenever I do get to that point to where I want to do them, uh, and I guess find a good channel to do that on. But anyways, that's way down the line, and right now we're concentrating on Caesar, guys. Battle of Pharsalus. And when I was looking at a few pics, when I was like, throwing this picture here, which is a horrible picture. I'm sorry. I was just kind of in a rush to pick something. There seemed like there was a lot of desert. So I'm assuming that we're going to Africa, because I don't really know anywhere else that would have desert besides Africa in this series. So that's where I'm kind of what I'm thinking, because, Caesar's going to need grain, and maybe he heads over there, or maybe we kind of get, one of his other commanders kind of, take control of this episode, kind of like he's done in the past over there in Africa. But anyways, guys, let's get to this video. Please hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't yet, that'd be greatly appreciated. If you're already, you're awesome, and appreciate you tons more for hanging out with me for this time. I don't know. I think I got everything I wanted to say when I sat down. So let's get on with this series. I was like, what do I need to do? I talked about maybe not having videos tomorrow. I talked about what was coming up next. So I'm like, okay, I'm good. There's always sometimes when I finish videos, I was like, dang, I wanted to mention that. So I'm probably going to say the same thing after this one. But anyways, bubble on here. Kings and Generals, awesome. Subscribe to them.
We often use the words decisive battle to denote the engagement that brought the end of a conflict or quickened it, but some battles transcend that, as they change the fates of entire empires or civilizations. In 48 BC, the Great Roman Civil War was approaching its high point, with Caesar and Pompey maneuvering around Greece. The Battle of Pharsalus would pit the old friends against each other yet again, with the whole Roman world in balance. Shout out to Magellan TV for sponsoring this video.
Okay, so we're going to get from the sounds of it, we're going to get like basically round 2 of Caesar and Pompey. So this is, I'm definitely loving this. I'm assuming we're going to be on like a different, different battlegrounds. So this is going to be really cool. Let me jump ahead here. All right. Wish I can get me a sponsor. That'd be awesome. My channel's waiting.
Following the defeat at Dyrrachium, Caesar was in a precarious position. The army under his command was by now heavily depleted, and his other legions were scattered around Greece, 2 under Domitius Calvinus around Macedonia, and 1 in southern Greece under Longinus and Sabinus. Caesar's defeat also meant that his supporters would be wavering. He needed a victory soon, and it would need to be decisive. Caesar's priority was to get his army back into fighting condition, so he first marched to Apollonia, where he left his wounded, and sent 7 cohorts to garrison various towns and cities under his control. Longinus's legion would be safe in southern Greece, but Domitius and his 2 veteran legions of Gallic campaigns, who had been stalling and pinning Scipio Metellus during Dyrrachium, were now exposed.
Yeah, what's going on there?
All of Caesar's plans now revolved around merging his depleted army with Domitius. If Pompey marched on Italy, Caesar would meet up with Domitius and march through Illyria to attack Pompey from the rear. If Pompey marched on Caesar, Caesar would march to Domitius and fight a battle with the merged army. If Pompey besieged Caesar's allied towns in Greece, Caesar would march to Domitius and attack Scipio, forcing Pompey to react or lose an ally. Before any of these plans could be put into effect, though, Caesar had to get to Domitius. He began his march at full pace from Apollonia. Pompey, however, had also come to a similar conclusion. If Scipio was caught unsupported, his legions would surely be lost. Both Caesar and Pompey were once again in a race with each other, each hoping to reach their ally before the other. Leaving Cato in control of Dyrrachium.
I was totally wrong. I thought this war was going to be taking place in Africa. Like we were going to kind of like jump, do kind of like a time jump, but it's totally not happening that way. We're basically continuing like pretty much right off where we left off. I'm honestly surprised that, because it seems like Rome is kind of open for Pompey. I guess he wants to, save his ally here who would die for sure. But to get to Rome, to just take over Rome and just, I don't know, it would just almost seem like a victory that, he's back in Rome and has it back in his power. But then again, is it Sir Anthony? Is it Sir Anthony or, dang, what's his name? He's back there, so I'm sure he would probably defend, but I'm sure he doesn't have as big of an army back there. But I was thinking maybe he would just, go across the channel here. But anyways, just my thoughts.
Hoping to reach their ally before the other. Leaving Cato in control of Dyrrachium, Pompey began his march to Scipio. As he did, he took measures to slow Caesar, spreading the word of his defeat at Dyrrachium, and as a result, Caesar found little support on his march, and his scouts and messengers found it impossible to reach Domitius.
Wow.
When both armies were just 4 hours from the positions of Domitius and Scipio, Caesar had a stroke of luck.
I'm sorry, I guess because I'm just horrible at reading maps here. Aren't these like roads here? Like I figured he'd come down here, then like I guess come up this way, and I don't know. I'm just confused. I guess the routes they take some here. Like maybe it's the terrain that I'm thinking about that I can't see that just kind of bogs them down.
On the positions of Domitius and Scipio, Caesar had a stroke of luck. Some of the Gauls who had defected to Pompey at Dyrrachium had yet another change of heart, racing to Domitius and warning him of Pompey's approach and Caesar's location. Armed with this knowledge, Domitius was able to safely reposition and merge with Caesar. Caesar's whole army in the region, aside from the 27th, was now united.
That's what he wanted.
Nonetheless, Pompey still held the upper hand. He had more local support and supplies, and so his intention was now to avoid another confrontation with Caesar. Despite his numbers, he was still aware of both how much more experienced the enemy forces were compared to many of his own, and how dangerous Caesar was in the field. In Plutarch's words, Caesar and that army who had stormed 1,000 cities, subdued over 3,000 nations, gained numberless battles of the Germans and Gauls, taken 1 million prisoners, and killed as many in the field. Pompey was confident that, in time, Caesar would run out of supplies and that his army would break down. This was known as the Fabian strategy, and had been used to great effect by Fabius Maximus against Hannibal in the Second Punic War.
Well, that's going to be an awesome series when I ever get to it. But anyways, I don't think that, Caesar seems like such a great general of getting his people motivated and stuff. I just want to see that happening. This seems like he's just too smart. I think that might work maybe with a lesser known general or something, but I don't think that's going to work with Caesar though.
To great effect by Fabius Maximus against Hannibal in the Second Punic War. Many high-ranking members of Pompey's army, however, were pushing for a decisive battle. Ahenobarbus, Scipio, Afranius, and Cicero applied pressure to Pompey, accusing the general variously of cowardice and even of having been bribed. Pompey would have to act soon, or risk his army fracturing.
Smart.
Caesar, on the other hand, had wasted no time. He marched quickly to Gomphi, an important town with many supplies, and home to the praetor of Thessaly, Androsthenes. Androsthenes had previously promised his and Thessaly's support for Caesar, but following Dyrrachium had defected to Pompey, closing the gates of the city to Caesar.
Oh wow.
Caesar did not have the supplies or time to conduct a prolonged siege, so he decided to storm the town. The attack started at 3 in the afternoon and was all over by sunset, a number of nobles, likely including Androsthenes, committing suicide. Despite their defeat at Dyrrachium, Caesar's veterans were still a force to be reckoned with. After resupplying...
I'm sorry I'm pausing again real soon, but I guess that was a thing then. You'd rather kind of commit suicide than be taken captured. I guess back in those days, because then you might get tortured or something, or it would just they would just kind of take you out of your misery to kill yourself, or maybe it was just kind of almost like a religious thing, or just a personal thing, I deserve to die because my city fell or something. I don't know. It's damn, kill yourself, man. It's rough.
Caesar's veterans were still a force to be reckoned with. After resupplying, Caesar marched to Metropolis, which surrendered upon hearing the fate of Gomphi.
There you go.
Many other towns soon followed suit, and Caesar soon had enough local support to resupply his army for the time being. Pompey knew that if he could keep Caesar pinned in Thessaly, he would still eventually run out of supplies and be starved out. But the pressure from his officers was continually mounting. Finally, Pompey relented to their demands and marched his army to Pharsalus to give battle, setting up his camp on the high ground. Morale amongst Pompey's men was high, and his officers were confident of victory. They had a huge numerical advantage and had already defeated Caesar once. Already talks were being had about who would be the consuls and praetors after the war, and who would get the property of Caesar and his allies.
See, that's already a giant mistake. You're already counting your chickens before they hatch. You're thinking too much about ahead of time than what the task at hand. You need to put all this thought into this battle right here, because it's not obviously Caesar's proved himself. It's not going to be a gimme battle for you guys. So what are you doing? I want Caesar to win, because this is a Caesar video. I'm rooting for him, but I don't know. Stuff like that just annoys me. It's concentrate on this. I want you guys already know the seasoned veterans here. Pompey said this in the past. And maybe it's just all as Pompey's generals. They're not. I guess they experienced this kind of thing, and they're just Pompey's got this. We'll worry about the land afterwards. I don't know. Just this stuff kind of gets you. Dude, concentrate the battle at hand.
Consuls and praetors after the war, and who would get the property of Caesar and his allies, and who would hold Caesar's position of Pontifex Maximus after his defeat. According to Caesar, they were not concerned with the means by which they could gain the upper hand, but with the way in which they ought to use their victory.
Exactly.
Their confidence was not unfounded. Pompey's army numbered around 47,000 infantry and 7,000 cavalry. Caesar's army, on the other hand, now numbered only around 21,000 infantry and 500 cavalry, according to his own account. Due to Caesar not counting his auxiliaries in this account, it is possible that the number of infantry and cavalry Caesar gives is underplayed, and Appian suggests his infantry numbered nearer 30,000 and cavalry around 2,000.
Okay. Makes sense.
Caesar was equally confident though. His army was not as numerous, but it was more experienced and disciplined. Only a handful of Pompey's legions were true veterans, many having been recruited specifically for the war and only having seen their first action at Dyrrhachium. While the bulk of Pompey's infantry were Roman legions, they were supported by auxiliaries and allies from the east, making up the majority of light infantry and cavalry. These men, though all skilled warriors, would not have been trained to fight in the Roman style, and the multitude of languages spoken in Pompey's army would have made coordination difficult. The men Caesar had under his command were from his 10 veteran legions, all of whom had fought with him since his Gallic campaigns, some for as many as 12 years. Every day,
I'm not sure if the Punic Wars if Pompey was in those or not, but it seems like in the series, as I said, his better years were behind him before he was in the Republic in Rome. I wonder if we'll see more of him in the Punic Wars. It'd be kind of cool to see him in his prime,
12 years. Every day, Caesar would march his army out of the camp to the base of Pompey's hill, offering battle. Pompey each time refused to commit, pulling his men out of camp but never moving from the high ground. It was clear that he was still not wholly committed to a pitched battle and did not want to give up his advantageous position, only being willing to commit to minor skirmishes.
Makes sense.
While these maneuvers were going on, Caesar also mounted some of his infantry, drilling them each day to bring his cavalry up to 2,000, still much less than Pompey's, but enough to at least stall them.
Okay.
It had been almost a month now since the Battle of Dyrrhachium, and Caesar eventually decided that if Pompey would not give battle, his best strategy would be to keep his army on the march, moving camp every day, forcing Pompey to shadow him and wearing out Pompey's less disciplined force. On the 9th of August 48 BC, Caesar was about to put this plan into action and had his army prepared to decamp, when Pompey's army suddenly moved off from their position on the hill to the plains to give battle. It is not entirely clear why Pompey chose to do this. The most likely answer is that he was pressured by his supporters who, upon seeing Caesar ready to move, were worried Caesar would slip away and had pressed Pompey to seize the opportunity and give battle.
This is retarded. Not retarded, but I know Pompey, why you come to this pressure? The people giving you this advice to go attack are the ones already counting the land they'll get if you win. They have no idea about tactics. I mean, they just want to hurry up and have you win so they can go back and get Caesar's property. And put those people in line. I mean, I guess Caesar's plan was to leave, so then I don't know. Yeah, it just seems like he's listening to people he shouldn't be listening to. He's getting all this pressure on him to do certain things. I guarantee there's no one on Caesar's side who's pressing Caesar to do something. I guarantee you Caesar would give them a mouthful, So
Caesar would slip away and had pressed Pompey to seize the opportunity and give battle. Whatever the reason, Caesar took it as a blessing and also prepared his army for a battle on now even terrain. Pompey knew that his key advantages were his cavalry and his numbers, and he drew up his army to best maximize their effectiveness. His infantry was formed into the classic Roman triplex equies, but slightly deeper than the usual 10-men depth order to better hold a defensive line. On his left wing, he stationed 2 legions under the command of Lucius Lentulus. These were 2 of Pompey's most experienced legions, one raised by himself, and the other having been raised by Caesar for the Gallic Wars, and later handed to Pompey just before the Civil War. In his centre, he stationed Scipio and his Syrian legions, while the right would be held by 2 legions combined into one, with a river to their right protecting their flank. Within this twin legion were veterans from Cilicia and from Spain, likely survivors from the Battle of Ilerda. They were commanded by Ahenobarbus, one of Caesar's most active opponents.
Huh.
In a relentless world.
I like how they're gonna like, you know,
trapped by illusion.
kind of what's going on.
But there is
Right
another
now.
path, where the battle to the
While
Lord
we hurry up.
begins.
So that's good.
All these legions were Pompey's best men. They would take the brunt of the attack, while Pompey's less experienced legions, allies and auxiliaries, would form the 2 back lines. On Pompey's extreme left were his 7,000 cavalry, under the command of Labienus, supported by Pompey's skirmishers and archers. A further 2,000 infantry were held in reserve in Pompey's camp, under the command of Afranius and Pompey's son Gnaeus.
Okay.
Pompey positioned himself on the left. His plan was to use the tactic of his hero, Alexander the Great. With Ahenobarbus and the river guarding his right flank, Pompey's infantry would hold the line, while the entire cavalry force would flank left, destroying Caesar's cavalry before falling on his legions from behind, becoming the hammer to the anvil of the defending legions.
Okay.
Caesar also drew his army up in the triplex equies formation. The 10th Legion, Caesar's personal favourite and some of his best troops, were stationed on his right, opposite Pompey. These men were commanded by Sulla, who had distinguished himself at Dyrrhachium, and this was also where Caesar positioned himself. On the left, Caesar positioned 2 of his other most experienced legions, the 8th and 9th, with the river to their left. These 2 legions had suffered so many casualties over recent campaigns that they were ordered to work as one legion under the command of Antony. The centre would be held by the 11th and 12th under the command of Domitius. Caesar's remaining legions filled the 2nd and 3rd lines, the 3rd having strict orders to not engage until Caesar gave the signal.
I just want to guess. I'm sorry. I thought Antony was best told back at Rome to defend it if Pompey went over there. But I'm sorry, he didn't. He's not over there. He came across. That's right. With when that general, who's that? The leader died on Pompey's side, the naval leader, and he came across with I guess the rest of the army. Is that right? If I remember correctly, I don't know. So he is here.
The 3rd having strict orders to not engage until Caesar gave the signal. In order to match Pompey's line, Caesar had to stretch his own thin, only 6 men deep. Caesar's cavalry was stationed opposite Pompey's. They were hopelessly outnumbered, and Caesar was well aware that they would not be able to stall Pompey's horse for long. As such, he also pulled 3,000 men from various legions, arming them with spears and forming them into a 4th line behind. Caesar was the one to begin the engagement, ordering his front 2 lines to charge Pompey's. Caesar's men expected Pompey's infantry to countercharge, as was standard military custom, but they instead stood fast holding their line.
Okay.
In a brilliant display of discipline, Caesar's men spontaneously halted mid-charge and reassembled. After a brief pause to regain their stamina, they moved slowly forward, only breaking into a charge once again when nearer to Pompey's line. Javelins were hurled from both sides, and Pompey's men, braced and with interlocked shields, held the line. An intense melee ensued with brutal close-quarters fighting. Pompey now put his plan into action. Labienus led the Pompeian cavalry to Caesar's right flank, supported by the skirmishers and archers, smashing into the Caesarian cavalry. Caesar's men could not hold off the onslaught for long, gradually being forced back before retreating entirely. They had, however, performed their role. Whilst Pompey's cavalry had been fighting with Caesar's, Caesar had given the order for his fourth line of spear-armed infantry to wheel around and face Labienus and his cavalry. The Pompeian cavalry had been preparing to charge Caesar's legions in the rear, but with Caesar's cavalry acting as a screen, they hadn't seen Caesar's fourth line move into position, and now they found themselves being attacked by 3,000 heavily armoured spearmen. Pompey's cavalry, though numerous, were not heavy cavalry, and many were young nobles with little experience of warfare. Fighting veteran spearmen head-on was not something they were cut out for. They were routed quickly, being forced to retreat to the distant high ground to try and regroup, but the damage had already been done. Caesar's fourth line pushed on into Pompey's missile troops, easily crushing them. As they pushed on, it was now Pompey who was being flanked. His left flank legions, both who had previously fought alongside Caesar and his legions, now found themselves attacked on multiple fronts by their old comrades, the 10th Legion from the front and the 4th line from the left flank and rear.
Alright.
It was at this point that Caesar committed his third line of fresh troops, throwing every man he had into the battle. Under this huge pressure, Pompey's line began to break, starting with the 1st and 3rd. This was also where Pompey had stationed himself, and almost becoming surrounded, he had little choice but to flee the battlefield and retreat to his camp. The rest of Pompey's line broke in quick succession, Caesar's fourth line rolling up the flank, while his fresh third line pushed from the front. Some attempted to follow their general and retreat to their camp. Others simply fled the battlefield. Caesar, knowing his victory needed to be complete, stormed the camp, easily overwhelming the few thousand reserves and men who had retreated. Those that had retreated from the battlefield were soon surrounded on a hill and forced to surrender. Caesar had won.
Wow.
In a relentless world, connected, but alone, trapped by illusion. But there is another.
That was pretty awesome, man. That was pretty awesome. I didn't realize how powerful those spearmen were of Caesar's. I mean,
the battle to belong.
There's so many cavalry, man. They just wiped Caesar's cavalry out.
By the time,
but I guess there's no match for experienced spearsmen, and I guess they were light cavalry. So, wow. And then they pushed up. Now, I figured maybe Pompey would have made some moves down here. You know, maybe like the back row of troops of Pompey's kind of move them over to stop the, the flanking. But I guess he didn't think about that, or that just wasn't a possibility, maybe. I don't know. Dang, man.
Caesar had won. By the time Caesar stormed the camp, however, Pompey had already gone, fleeing with 30 bodyguards. Many other high-ranking Pompeians, such as Labienus, Afranius, Scipio, and Pompey's son Gnaeus, had also managed to escape. Nonetheless, not all had been so lucky. Ahenobarbus, brave but ill-starred, had been cut down in the retreat, possibly by Antony himself. Many others had been captured in Pompey's camp and in the immediate aftermath. Among these was a young man, Marcus Junius Brutus. The son of Caesar's mistress, Brutus was held in high regard by Caesar, who had given his men orders to not kill Brutus. When Brutus surrendered, Caesar was overjoyed, welcoming him with open arms. Caesar showed his customary leniency to Pompey's soldiers as well, with more than 24,000 surrendering to him.
What? That was like almost half of Pompey's force, 24,000? Jeez, man. I wonder if I'm sure some of them might defect and join Caesar just because, you know, the leniency right now. Wow, what like a huge victory. It's crazy.
24,000 surrendering to him. In total, Caesar claims to have lost 200 men and 30 centurions in the battle, while giving the Pompeian losses as 15,000 dead and the 24,000 surrendered. These numbers seem suspiciously exaggerated, and Appian suggests it was more likely 1,200 of Caesar's men dead and 6,000 of Pompey's, the rest surrendering or fleeing. Whichever is closer to the truth, the fact remains that Caesar's victory was decisive. Aside from having broken Pompey's largest army, he had scattered the Pompeian officers, many fleeing to North Africa, and absorbed many of Pompey's surrendered men into his army, almost doubling its size. Pompey himself sailed first to the Greek islands of Lesbos and Mytilene, meeting his wife Cornelia and his youngest son Sextus. His intent was to get his family far away from Caesar and use his connections in the east to rebuild an army to resist Caesar. By the time he reached Cyprus, he had taken out private loans and put together a fleet along with 2,000 men. His defeat, however, had cost him much public support. Pompey had initially planned to head to the province of Syria, but they turned against him and he was forced to look elsewhere. He decided on Egypt. The boy pharaoh Ptolemy XIII owed his throne to Pompey, Pompey having supported Ptolemy's father and guaranteeing his will that made Ptolemy pharaoh. Pompey had also lent a number of officers and soldiers from his eastern command to the pharaoh's army. Confident he would find support there, Pompey sailed to Egypt. He was met off the coast by a small rowing boat which would take Pompey to shore. Aboard were a man called Savius, the head of the Egyptian army Achillas, and an ex-officer of Pompey's, Lucius Septimius. Pompey's wife was worried about this lack of pomp and suspected something was not right, but Pompey was reassured by the presence of Septimius. Stepping off his ship, he quoted a line of Sophocles to his wife: "He who enters a tyrant's door becomes his slave, even if he leaves a free man." As the small boat rowed to shore, Pompey tried to alleviate the tense atmosphere, telling Septimius he was an old comrade. He received only a nod of recognition in response. Septimius then struck, stabbing the old general, quickly followed by both Achillas and Savius. Septimius then beheaded his corpse, throwing the body naked into the sea. Ptolemy, upon the counsel of his advisors, had betrayed Pompey in order to try and win approval from Caesar. Pompey the Great, 3 times consul, conqueror of the East, and one of the Roman Republic's most prolific generals, was dead. It is worth noting how revered Pompey was. Plutarch despaired that he and Caesar had gone to war. Had they been willing to enjoy the fruits of their labors in peace and tranquility, the greatest and best part of the world was their own. If they must have victories and triumphs, what Scythian horse, what Parthian arrows, what Indian treasures could have resisted 70,000 Romans led on by Pompey and Caesar? Though arguably past his prime at Pharsalus, Pompey had not at all fought badly. His plan was solid and the best that could be done. The reason for his defeat was not poor generalship, but the skill and experience of Caesar and his infantry, and the lack of experience of Pompey's cavalry. Pompey and Caesar were both incredibly talented generals, and it is telling how often the two decided on similar strategies. When Caesar reached Egypt having pursued Pompey, he was first presented with Pompey's head. Disgusted, he turned away. He was next presented the seal of Pompey, at which point Caesar broke down in tears. Though enemies in later life, it is worth remembering that Caesar and Pompey had been political allies for around 8 years, had effectively ruled Rome together, and had even been related by marriage. Caesar...
I'll let it play out in a second. I'll just let it play out before I say my 2 cents.
Actively ruled Rome together and had even been related by marriage. Caesar was well aware that, despite being his enemy, Pompey had been a titan of his time, worthy of his respect. Caesar's victory marked a turning point in the war.
Yeah, man. What a way to go, man. Like, Pompey the Great, but gets friggin' stabbed in a little rowboat. Like, what the, like, I was gonna say before that even happened, man, your chances now are grim. I mean, that was a huge loss for you, man. And then, Caesar gains all that land, all them warriors, and then gains probably support of all the people. Like, I don't really think there was any coming back, even if Pompey survived there. I just don't think he could have came back. And yeah, really, this video is almost over. I guess I'll let it play out first before we wrap it up.
It was now the Optimates who would find themselves on the back foot. Nevertheless, the war was far from over.
Oh, really?
Pompey's staunchest supporters, Cato, Scipio, and Pompey's sons, Gnaeus and Sextus, had all fled to North Africa to continue the resistance. With them also was Labienus, now undoubtedly the best commander among the Optimates. Our series on Caesar's civil war will continue, so make sure you are subscribed and have...
Wow. Like, Caesar's respect for Pompey, like, he doesn't want to, he's disgusted, like, why give me a head? Like, this is a guy I respected, I spent a lot of time with, in the Republic, there's, I guarantee, a great mutual respect for each other. And, like, for him to go down like that, Caesar, obviously was disgusted. And, you have a history with someone, and he dies like that, and all of a sudden, or there's going to be some feel there and some heart wrench because you have this mad respect for someone, and I'm sure Caesar kind of had his own thoughts of how this whole thing would end, and probably I don't think if Caesar captured him, I don't think Caesar would kill him. I think maybe he would have thrown him, maybe put him away on exile or something, but I think there was such respect for that. I don't think he would have had him hanged or murdered. I mean, I guess maybe his his marshals or whatever might have convinced him of that, just because he was one of those things. If he's still out there, he saw the chance to raise an army and turn against you. But wow, honestly, I thought that like the whole war was over. I didn't really realize that his marshals were they were still going to try and do something about it. But definitely decisive victory. Like I said, that was a decisive victory. I think Pompey had the upper hand and kind of had the momentum before that victory, and then right after that, Caesar gained a huge, his momentum changed. He just gained a huge advantage on him, So that definitely decisive victory, and now he's got to go kind of chop off the smaller heads of the marshals that are still standing against him. So I'm assuming he's gonna go to Africa now and try and finish up the job here. Stop this whatever resistance is left. But wow, that's a huge victory. After it's all said and done, when he kind of returned to affect those guys, he's feeling good about himself. But anyways, guys, I hope you like this. Please hit the like and subscribe, guys. We'll see you guys in the next battle, which is Siege of Alexandria. For Alexandria, that's in Africa, right? Yeah. So yeah, definitely an awesome episode. Definitely did not expect that demise of Pompey. I expected him to kind of get another force together and then go out and find Caesar and kind of fingers crossed, hope to kind of get him in a bad situation. But I definitely as soon as they said the small boat came up and he had to jump in the boat, I was in the back of my mind, are they going to assassinate him right now, before it happened? Because I thought this is a fishy situation, and why would You know, kings in general is like, why would they put this big emphasis on him jumping in a small boat? Like, why would they even bring that up? So as soon as they did said that, I'm like, oh my god, is he gonna die right now? And so they did it. I mean, but wow, wow. Yeah, it'd be nice to kind of see down the line, see videos of Pompey in his prime. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, the series is awesome. Time to continue on, guys. We got more episodes left. But anyway, I guess we catch you guys in the next episode. Remember, I probably won't be making any videos tomorrow, so gives you guys time to rest and look forward to the next one, right? So hope you guys enjoy your Saturday, and I'll definitely catch you guys in future videos. Appreciate you guys watching. You guys are awesome. This was an awesome episode, and yeah, that's it. I'm lost for words, and I can't think of anything else really left to say. So I will just say, have a good night, have a great day. Once again, you're awesome, and peace. Catch you guys in future videos.